Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Maker Math STEAM. And before we begin, please turn your cell phone ringer down or off. If you're plugging devices into wall outlets, please keep in mind that people may be moving around during the session. Your devices may be damaged if someone runs into the cords, or they may be hurt. Fire regulations require that all session attendees, please come in, continue, sorry, have a chair. There's no standing in the aisles or sitting on the floor. Please do not use chairs for your belongings if others are looking for a place to sit. Act 48 will still be available at PETE&C as we've offered in the past. However, no codes will be distributed this year. You will be able to submit your Act 48 credit online via the evaluation process, which will be open until March 3rd. At the end of the session, I will remind you about the process for logging in to evaluate the session and, if applicable, earn Act 48 credits. So without further ado, here is Tom McLaughlin with Maker Math STEAM.
Hi. Thank you. Wow, that's fantastic. I get an applause. I haven't even started. I'm out. I'm done. So I changed the name to STEAM because as I was looking through a lot of my projects, I'm like, there's a whole lot of art in there. So I might as well include it, but often we leave the A silent. So we're just going to pronounce this STEM. And we'll just kind of leave the A in it. Because it's nice sometimes that the arts sneak in, and if we push that too much, the kids don't necessarily buy into it. But one of the first questions I had to think about when I was making this course was, what makes a good Maker Math problem? What makes a good STEM problem? And given some thought to that, I thought, well, it's got to be a problem I don't know the answer to. If you know the answer to the problem, it's really not a problem anymore. It's just something that you are holding the solution back from the kids. So one of the things you have to do as a teacher in a course like this is be willing to just open the door, present the pieces of information, and be okay with not knowing every answer, which is challenging, to say the least. Because our instinct is to teach the students, give them the guidance that they need so they can get to the conclusion, which means there is a chance that in some of these projects that our students will not succeed the first time. And I'm echoing what was said in our keynote this morning, but I never like to say the word failure because I really think that's silly. It just means you haven't succeeded yet. And you can choose to stop and try something different, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you keep working at it, no matter how long you work at it, you will eventually succeed at whatever you're working at. So I tell my students their course grade, because that's the first thing they want to know. How are we going to get graded on this? I tell them, well, their grade is based upon their work that they submit and the evidence that they show that to support. So for example, we're doing a project on learning how ships float. Fairly current in the news, given the cruise ships issues lately. And I said, well, if your ship sinks, you're not doing so bad because the cruise liners are doing great. They have the same types of issues, same types of challenges. It's okay if you don't succeed. Good thing is there's nobody on your ship. You're safe. So I created several projects to talk about science, technology, engineering, and math. Some of them were created with Discovery Education in a project called STEM for the Navy, and I'll share that website with you. Navy STEM for the Classroom. It's a great website. I wrote several of the curriculum pieces on there. There's some interactive pieces. We're going to look at those curriculum pieces as well. Some other ones that I've come up with through some exploration. One of the things that struck me is in the first day of class, I asked my students, and I do this in all my classes, what are your expectations of this course? And I usually get the I want to pass, and I want to do well, and I want you to teach. And that's not very helpful for me. But one of my students had a very interesting comment. When we first started into the first project, he's like, when I first took this course, I thought this was a course where you're going to give me a bunch of problems and they're going to be real world, and I'm going to do the math. I didn't think I'd get to touch it. And that's a pretty big key there. Getting the ability to touch the math, the science, the engineering. That's the key piece, putting your hands on it. So in this first project, we're exploring future fleets. And we're looking at what makes ships float. Take 500 tons of steel, put it in a piece of water, and hope it floats. And one of the first things I do is I show them some cataclysmic failures where they put these lovely little ships that are 500 tons of steel into the water, and they just tilt, and they fall. Or they just sink. I ask them, what's the problem? What are the issues? And then I show them videos of cruise ships in raging waters, tilting to 20 and sometimes 45-degree angles, and not sinking. Huge buildings in the water, and they don't sink. Why? How does that work? And that piques their interest. So then we start and we look at designing 3D models. So we go into ThinkCAD, which is a free online 3D software. Very easy for kids to use. I found that many of the other softwares require a huge learning curve. Blender's beautiful, but if you have about a marking period to teach it, that's fantastic. ThinkCAD, I can have kids working and doing 3D designs very quickly. We also use 3D printing. I was fortunate enough to apply for a grant and get 3D printers for my classroom. But you can have objects 3D printed for your students using shapeways.com. It's about $15. But for a group, you might be able to get the kids all to chip in $2 to print their project. So even if you don't have that 3D printer, there are options out there for you to get that project printed. And again, having it in their hands, being able to put it in the water and see that this ship is floating exactly in the water where they predicted is huge. And if it doesn't float exactly, or when they print it out and it has a hole in the bottom, that's pretty big too, because they can go back and reprint it. They can go back and redo it, figure out what they did wrong, and it doesn't affect their grade. Not succeeding does not affect their grade. They need to turn in all the project pieces, all the parts, but not succeeding doesn't affect their grade. So there's a couple programs that I found very useful. The most useful one, I had to dig and hunt for it. How do you find the volume of a 3D print before you print it? Because that's a pretty critical piece when you're making a ship. You need to know the volume. So my first inclination as being a math teacher and teaching calculus was, I'm going to teach them how to do slices. Well, I got 10th graders through seniors, some are in calc, some just finished algebra 2, and that wasn't going to work. We talked about the idea, but I found this great little program called Stl Stats. Hopefully this link works. You have to search for it. It's not easy to find. The link will be in the PowerPoint. Now it's up. Now it's down. All right, well, I'm not going to mess with switching the screen. It's STL Stats. It's buried on a code-serving site. And what's nice about it is it gives you the ability to calculate the volume and the mass given the density of the material you're printing with. That's pretty big. You're able to figure out what the density of this ship is going to be before you print it, which means you can calculate the center of mass. You can calculate how it's going to float in the water by figuring out how much volume it's going to displace and the volume of water that has to hold it up. So they do all those calculations, they do all the math, they print it out, and then it floats because they put a mark on their ship right where it's supposed to float. And it floats right at that point. That's huge. And it's not as difficult as it sounds. My second project, molecular gastronomy. This word in itself gets their attention. So our goal here in molecular gastronomy is to make a portable water bottle. Something that a runner could take in their hand and throw in their mouth on the fly without having to take a water bottle and drink in their hands. And I thought it was a really cool idea. I thought it was great. My kids were looking at it going, yeah, I don't run. Great. Well, can we, try it? Yeah. Can we make pudding balls instead? That sounds like a good snack. Okay, sure. It's the same concept. We're still doing solution. We're still figuring out how to put the percent composition, and we're looking at percent mass and percent volume. We're still figuring out how to do the measurements correctly. We're still doing things like taking calcium lactate, figuring out how much calcium is in it in order to make our 0.18% solution that we can put with our sodium alginate, which has to be a 0.5% solution. And they made the problem harder because I just wanted them to put calcium in water. They want to use pudding. They're going to have to figure out the calcium content of the pudding before they can go any further. So they made the problem harder. Let them do it. I don't know the answer. I don't know if anybody in here knows the answer. Calcium content of pudding? Anybody? Nope. But that's okay. As long as they demonstrate all of their work. They also have, again, the opportunity to do 3D design to design a container. We're going to have to hold these things in because they get a little slimy. You have to store them in something. Their project, their ideas. Just because, I don't think it's going to work. We'll try. We'll see if it works. Can you show me the video?
A tasty, delicious treat that you can eat and drink.
Nope. Gotta love Windows when they decide to not give you control of your computer. They decided I'm in a presentation and I'm not allowed to do anything else. So, Sonic Pi. Anybody ever hear this? Cool, I love giving people new things. Sonic Pi is a language that's based on Ruby. And it was originally built for the Raspberry Pi, but they have now ported it to Microsoft Windows and Macintosh. And what's really cool about Sonic Pi is kids can write code that produces music. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been programming for a long time. I'm a math and computer science teacher. And I remember making music on my Commodore 64, making tones. So maybe that's not that impressive. Well, then I got looking at it a little bit deeper. And they don't just compose music and play it. They compose it live. So they're live coding their music. And as they type in the commands, as they put in their loops, they're changing the sound quality. They're digitally sampling themselves and playing live music while learning coding. See how the A is silent? Steve? We're sneaking that in there. There's our arts piece. So arts isn't always just making a poster. Heaven forbid, if I ever make a poster in this course, put me down. No posters. Okay? We want the kids to do something and express things in ways that I haven't. Things that are new, things that are different, so they can see it. Now I'll play the music because I think that'll play. Oops. See now? So, they're typing in code live. sounds like running water, but it's legal. Let's go back to this. So Sonic Pi, like I said, was written in the Ruby programming language, which is really more of an artistic language. Anybody know anything about programming? Python is designed to be easy to code. Ruby is designed to be expressive. It's a very expressive language. Anybody who's hard-coded into programming knows that Ruby is not the most friendly, logical language to everybody, but it's expressive, and this is a perfect application of that. There's tons of resources on their website. Music samples, it's very easy to learn. They have lessons and everything built in for you. Again, that'll be packaged together in my link on the document resources. This is another project that I wrote with Discovery. This was based on a real project called the SAFFIR, S-A-F-F-I-R. It was a project done by the Navy to create a firefighting robot. That may sound kind of, I don't know, silly. Why would you need a robot? I mean, just fight it. It's a hose. But in a ship, you have unique problems in that they don't have elevators in a Navy ship. They have stairs. In a Navy ship, it's all made of metal, so the temperature of a fire very quickly exceeds human tolerance. So this is a real problem that the Navy actually put out there for people to work on and put out their ideas and see what you can do. They put this out to kids. And the kids went ahead and put through their ideas. I'm taking the project and doing it to my kids, and the goal is for them to 3D design a firefighting robot. Well, to do that, they have to know how fire works. They have to know the 3 pieces of fire. They have to know that they need heat, that you're going to need some type of fuel, you're going to need oxygen. Get rid of any one of those 3 pieces, fire goes away. So that's all they need. They need to find some way of getting those 3 pieces out. They need to find some way of designing a robot that's going to be able to go up and down stairs. They need to design some way that a robot's going to be able to withstand extreme temperature. And then I'm just going to let them go. Design it and back up your proof of concept with facts, with your math, with your science, with your engineering, and then I want to see a 3D model of it. And if you don't actually print it out, that's okay. Well, we can print it out at our school district, but that's okay if they can just do a 3D model of it. Because that's what the Navy did. They just have their cool video graphics, and then they have their actual ship version that is in a very controlled circumstance. They tested last July, and they're looking to produce this in the next year or 2 to put forth on actual ships. GPS and navigation. So, I don't know about if you know this, but a few years ago they actually retired the old method of navigation. The old method of navigation was the LROD system, where they would use different land bases to triangulate the location of ships at sea. That's actually shut down. This is what we have now. This is it. And understanding how this works is actually a profound mathematical problem. It's the intersection of spheres. That is an awesome math problem. Not something I've ever covered in a geometry class. But it is an awesome math problem. The students get to figure out how GPS works based on mechanical waves. Wave propagation, fundamental concept in middle school through high school science. Calculating the speed of sound and radio waves and comparing the differences between the two to try to figure out what's the difference between the old system and the new system. Why is the radio wave so much faster? Why is that so much better? Looking at the fact that we're doing this from a satellite and talking about the limitations of that. What are the issues with it? Why is it so much better than what we had before, and why did we shut it down? That's a fantastic word, satellite transliteration. That's the intersection of the spheres. Figuring that math piece out is the core math piece of that. But then you also have different levels that you could translate this to. You could do this at the lower levels. You could do this at elementary and talk about longitude and latitude and put it with a geocaching experiment where the kids go around the school trying to find different geographic longitude and latitude locations. It's absolutely elementary school appropriate. Using those GPS coordinates to solve land-based problems. One of the problems that we look at is, suppose you wanted to create a track right in the middle of Washington, D.C., going around the green. That's not a rectangle. And you want to make a perfect rectangle. It looks rectangular, but it's not exactly rectangular. You want to make it perfect. So that way, when people are going around it, you know the exact times that they should be following, and you can calculate their distances that they're traveled and actually exercise outside. We can do that with GPS. And with the modern devices, everybody has a phone that tracks their GPS. Some people have watches that track their GPS. Some people have shoes that track their GPS. GPS is a fundamental piece of everything that these kids do today. It's absolutely something we should be teaching and having them learn. Jets in flight. So I asked my students, I showed them all these different projects. All in the beginning. Doesn't matter to me exactly what order we do them in. That's okay if we change the sorting. So we started with future fleet, and then we did molecular gastronomy, and I had plans to kind of follow the progression of my slides here. But I showed it to my students, and one of my students said, you know, Mr. McLaughlin, I'd really like to learn about jets. I have no idea how that works. Think about the last time you were in a classroom where you had a student say that. And you have the opportunity to teach them something that they're interested in and learning about. You have the opportunity to say, you know what? That's fantastic. We'll do that project next. We'll absolutely cover that project. Or if they come up with an idea that's not on your list, you can always come up with a new project, or better yet, make them do it. Make the last project of the year theirs. Give them a chance to come up with their own project. Now, this is an ambitious schedule that I have here. I'm planning on doing this in a semester. Half a year course. Small class, so we might be able to get it done. 2 weeks of project is what I'm looking at. So don't get caught up in making this a month-long project. Some of these you could shrink down to less than a week. 4 or 5 class days. Yes?
How long is your period? How long is your
42 minutes. It's not blocked. 42 minutes. I was able to do future fleet. The only thing I haven't been able to do is print them out yet, because that just takes a little bit more time. We're going to come back to it and do the testing. Molecular gastronomy, we're just about to finish that up. They're ready to make the recipes and start. Actually, they're doing that now while I'm away, making the recipes to print out their globules. Then we're going to move on to jets. And as a teaser, I took a piece of paper, folded it in half, glue in the bottom, paper burnt bending towards my face, and that's all I needed to hook up. That was it. Sometimes touching the math and touching the science is really the most important part. They get very lost in the textbooks, and I've been teaching for 20 years. And I've been teaching math and computer science, and I have seen the kids who get inspired by the math, and those are the easy ones to reach in the class. But I've also seen the kids that just kind of sit there and stare at you, and they want to know, how am I going to do this problem? Not, how do I understand the concept? How do I make this a reality somewhere else? Please give me the example I need to follow to pass the quiz. And I have fought this, and I said, you don't want to do that. And I fight them, and I say, you know what? I'm not going to give you an example. I'm not going to give you, I'm going to give you as many different problems as I possibly can. And they get really mad. They hate that. But in this class, I don't have to do that, because there is no problem that they can model this off of. Molecular gastronomy, building a new ship, picking out a GPS location so they can build a track in their neighborhood that is exactly 1 mile long for them to run. That was really appropriate. That absolutely was perfect. Should have let you go. So in the Jets, we talk about a lot of great projects. Again, I have a 3D printer, so I'm probably going to have them try to 3D print it. We'll see how it works, at least some of the parts. You can also do this with balsa wood. You can even do it with paper airplanes. If you've ever been to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, awesome exhibit. And teachers get free memberships, by the way, so please sign up. Get your free membership. Go visit the Franklin Institute. They have a fantastic aeronautics exhibit. And you should definitely go and take a look at it. And they have all the toys and things. You could build an entire project just based on what they have there. And it's all based on paper. Ocean search and rescue. How do you find somebody when they fall off the ship? What's the procedure? What do you do? Would anybody in here have an idea how to do that? Say goodbye, collect the insurance. Right? A good friend of mine once said, I told him I was going on a cruise. I said, I'm going on a cruise. He said, that's great. Yeah, I'm getting a balcony. Said, that's not great. Please, 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 make sure you love the person you're with when you get that balcony room. Because that could be problematic and they won't be able to find you. Actually, they can. They have a lot of great techniques for finding you at sea. But the kids don't know that. Most of us don't know that. Just like we know they have that problem solved, mostly. But how do they do that? I don't know the answer. So that's fantastic. There's a problem I don't know the answer to. I'm personally invested in that I think our kids would be interested in solving. So I give them the problem. I give them the work. We look at real navigation, GPS coordinates, and charting. We do the actual calculations that somebody would have to do. We come up with a plan to send out ships out and look for people in the ocean. Whether it's close to the water, whether it's off a cruise ship, whether it's somebody who got blown off a aircraft carrier by jet backwash. All real problems. All real things that happen. None of this, not real world problems that we find on page 96, the last 25 problems in the back of the book. The word problems where they change the words but not really any of the formulas or equations. Once the kids figure out the formula for the word problem, they're set, right? This isn't any of that. This is something that you don't know the answer to. And that's probably the scariest part of this as a teacher. Not knowing how to give them the final answer. And saying in class, wow, I have no idea. Let's figure that out. Yeah.
How would you grade something else?
Well, I graded it, I am grading it based on their work. Can they defend their work? Is their math right? And if they did not succeed, why didn't you succeed? Can you figure that out? And that's the grade. I'm not grading them on whether or not they succeeded or failed. That's silly. Why would I do that? Nobody in the real world does that. When I worked for Discovery Education, it was actually a big eye-opening. I wrote curriculum for them, and my first document I sent in to them. They said, we're going to have 7 people look at this. Okay. 7 people are going to look at this document. Fantastic. They sent it back to me. That document had more comments in it than it had words. More things that people thought were wrong with it. People tore it apart. I was heartbroken. I'm like, this is awful. This is destroyed. There was no grade on it, though. They said, well, you have another 10 hours of work. Go back and refix it. Well, not fix it, but improve it. And I was in a professional development with them, training, and speaking to them about this. And I brought it up. I was like, wow, that's some of the comments and criticism are pretty harsh. And they're like, no. That's not the goal. The goal is not to tear your project apart because we find it wrong. The goal is to find everything we can possibly do to make it better. It was awesome to start, but that's really not good enough. We want this to be phenomenal. We want this to be the best product that we can possibly do. So yeah, what you did is great. What you did is awesome. Here's your pat on the back that you needed, because we all need that sometimes. But I'm still going to tear it apart. I'm still going to show you every hole in it. I'm still going to tell you what you need to fix it, what you need to make it better, and I do let my kids resubmit their products. Once they turn their project into me, it's not done. I will look through it, I will give them their feedback, and I will say, hey, you have a choice to make it better, even if it's already 100. Have you ever given a project back that's 100? A perfect project? Have you given it back with feedback and say, fix this? That just so blows the mind. It's so totally unschooled. If you got 100, it's perfect. No, it's not. It means you met the rubric. You got 100 because you met the rubric, not because it's perfect. It can be better. Give them the opportunity, give them the feedback, give them the chance to make it better. Sonar and echolation. Awesome. So, the idea for this is the kids, they can be blindfolded and they can be yelling at walls to try to figure out how to get their way around the room. Sure, they could do that. They could also spend $35 to build a cane. There's a good friend of mine at work. His daughter is, for all intents and purposes, blind. And I saw this great project, and I was looking at this. That'd be great for the kids to create three-dimensional sonar models and all this stuff, but that didn't feel real. Well, this project that I looked at, and we're going to do this later in the year, felt real. And what it is a little device you can make for $35, and it sends out signals. And what happens is, the amount of time it takes for that signal to come back triggers a servo on your hand. And that servo will press harder if you're closer to something, and lighter if you're not. So imagine a little girl trying to make her way in the world. Instead of using a cane, she can use sonar echolation and find out all the things that are around her just by feeling it. That's a world of difference. That's a real problem. Do I know how to do it? I have some idea. Do I think our first attempt's going to work? Not at all. I'm going to spend the $35 because I know a kid who could try it. That's the power of these things. That's when you start opening your mind and thinking about real problems that need to be solved, not the textbook problems, not the problems that are, oh great, number 17. Johnny goes to school. That's not a problem, folks. That has an answer. It's in the back of the book. Problems don't have answers. Not yet. If it did, we wouldn't call it a problem. This one's a little bit more pricey. I think the total package to create this was $35 a student, but it's recyclable. In other words, they don't have to walk away with the product that they make. You can take it apart and save it for the following year. If they really like it, you could sell it to them. Let them replace it. Let them replace the parts. If they're that vested in it that they would like to have it, they can. But it's called POV, and it's passive persistence of vision. So when you take these lights on your hands, they flash at different intervals. And when you move your hand across the screen, it makes a word. It's based on a technology called LilyPad, and it's my introduction into electronics and circuits. I start first, though, with squishy circuits. Anybody know what a squishy circuit is? Squishy circuits are great. There's zero budget items. It's Play-Doh that you can make yourself. The recipes are really easy, and a couple LEDs. It's conductive Play-Doh and insulative Play-Doh. You can build circuits, you can build batteries, you can build motors. You can do all types of really cool stuff with these things. And it's zero cost. Well, okay, it's flour and water, maybe some salt. I mean, most of us have cafeterias we can borrow stuff from. But, or, you know, go out and buy it yourself, that $250 a year we get, right? Add some cost. So I start with squishy circuits. And then one of the things I found is that it's not enough, you know? And I could go with all the wires, and we do the breakout boards and all that, but it's just not interesting enough. So I found lily pad circuits, which are really cool. It's conductive thread. You actually sew the circuit. There's that silent A again. You're actually designing a piece of clothing that you're going to wear. That's fairly cool, my lord. I haven't done it yet. Sounds good. Will it fail for somebody? Probably. Somebody's going to have some problems, and that's okay. I hope they buy it and keep working on it. That's my hope. But they want to keep that piece so badly that they're willing to shell out whatever it costs me to replace the parts. So there's two other projects. My little package there. One's on nuclear power, and one's on the science of diving. I don't have big projects for these. You know, it's not a big all-encompassing project. This is good for little projects. A little bit more controlled. If you want to get your feet wet, kind of sort of speaking, you can dive in. I know that was really, really awful. You can dive into, oh, that was worse, into the science of diving and figure out a whole lot of science and math there for your kids. If you really want to take it further, sure, take them to a swimming pool. Have them experience pressure. Or take a water balloon, fill it with water, measure its diameter above the water, measure its diameter below the water. Not a big deal. Get them to come up with ideas, ways of describing these things, ways of demonstrating the science and the math. Put it on them. They have to prove it to you. That's where their grade is. If they can prove to you that they have an understanding of the math and the science, and they have engineered something to solve a real problem, you've achieved your goal, and you've taught them something. Now, is this course going to be successful? Absolutely. I guarantee you that. It's successful. Because the kids are interested in it and they're learning. Will they learn every single concept that I'm trying to get them to learn? No, not a chance. If they get 10%, that's fantastic. If they get inspired to get the other 90 and continue on with this, I've more than succeeded. So, I want to show you one or two websites that I couldn't show you before because this presentation was running. There we go. So I want to show you what these look like. I think one of the reasons that this course becomes so possible is that anything can be found on the internet as long as it's working.
Go to your PowerPoint to control and click your link.
And it should open.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think it's partially the internet / my computer. Copy hyperlink. It's shifting over to the, yeah. It's because we're in the projector. It wants to not show on the screen what I want to show on the screen. If future reference, embed your videos right into your PowerPoint. Okay. So here's the water globules.
A tasty, delicious treat that you can eat and drink. All that's left is the skin.
Yeah, it is.
That's edible too.
That's part of the problem they had to figure out to make it palatable. You know, for somebody to actually eat. And what if the skin had a flavor to it? You know, kind of like a jelly bean. You can think about it differently. And sometimes color makes a world of difference. Putting something in your mouth that's clear is a lot different than eating something that has color. You know, so some of this, yeah, again, goes back to that art part. It's got to be a real product that somebody can actually do, and somebody's going to actually want to put in their mouth. Otherwise, that's fantastic. You made a totally awesome product that nobody ever wants to use. Maybe on that show, X Factor, that'd be a great product for that. Halloween, maybe, but unless it has some type of appeal to a consumer, it's not going to be a useful product. And that's got to be part of what they're making. That's got to be part of their solution. It can't just be about the numbers. And then I want to show you the STL software. We did that one. Oh, let me show you this one because I have it right. So this is the actual test of the firefighting robot. Interesting enough, though, there is a Kickstarter project now to take this technology and put it towards the robo-war. You guys hear about this? Between Russia and the United States, two giant battling robots. And they have a Kickstarter to get the Navy's technology that they're using for the night. So there's all types of directions that you can go with things like this. Just because I have this talking about fires doesn't mean that we have to be limited to that. And then the other link this is the Navy STEM for the classroom. And you'll recognize a lot of these projects. There we go. What's really neat about this page is they tie it into the real videos of the Navy. I don't do a whole lot of this because I don't want to make this all about the Navy, but the science that we did for this and the math that we did for this was really good. There's also a really cool interactive on here for each of these projects that allows them to go through and build some of these projects digitally. And when we designed this, it was challenging getting this idea across about how we actually wanted this to work as an app. And I think what we came up with was pretty good. And one of the things I like about it is it gives you some real feedback, goes through some instruction, gives you some real feedback on how ships actually float, and then it lets you go through and actually try to build your own ship. And I have my kids go through this a couple times. Get to this part. So the last piece of this is kind of the keystone piece of it, where you get to actually go through and design and construct your ship. And you choose the three parts for your ship. You choose a hull design, you choose a middle design, you choose a top design. We throw our three pieces in, And I'm going to do this almost randomly. Choose this one. And this one. So what do you think? Is that going to be a good ship? What's your impression? Kyle looks a lot like those cruise liners. By the way, your cruise sales point will be right out the door. So then they, wow. Oh, well, that could be problematic. They say it's seaworthy, but it's not so stable, right? Well, actually, that's kind of the standard that the cruise ships actually follow. You're laughing, but I'm not kidding. The cruise ships have a standard that says, one of the interesting things is that if you're on a ship, and if your ship is really, really stable, it rocks really, really fast, which kind of is really interesting when you're inside room after 7 days. What they did is they purposely designed them to be unstable so they can roll and very slowly roll back to position. So when you see these videos, if you look it up online of these cruise ships rolling to 45 degrees, they're designed to do that. The other piece that makes these cruise ships rather safe is the people on board and the technology. They sail around problems, supposedly. But all the major disasters with cruise lines were because somebody didn't follow the rules. Somebody didn't follow the rules. Because the Concordia sunk, because the captain wanted to do a beautiful sail-by of the coast. And he hit a reef, and it sliced all the way up to the hull. Nothing anybody could have done about that. No designer could have planned that. It actually did pretty well based upon what happened to it. A lot better than the Titanic. There's a great video about comparison of Coast of Concordia to the Titanic. And it actually did a lot better. The last one is that STL website, which I want to show you. Oh, Anthem of the Seas, by the way, if you want to look up the ship. That was just recently in the news. Well, it really doesn't want me to do that. I'll post the actual link. But it's just a PHP script that lets you choose an STL file. An STL file is the 3D design model that you get that you can download from ThinkCAD. And even this, without ever printing it out, is pretty powerful. So I'm going to choose my file. You all get to see a look into my life. Let's do it. I can't see my extensions. I think we'll do this one. So it gives me the weight based upon the ABS density, but it also gives me volume, triangles counted for your calculus people, gives me different units. And then changes the density and shows me this count. That alone, just doing a 3D model, getting to figure out volume and how much material it's going to take to actually print it. Some of you might want to know that, right? How long is it going to take to print? How much is it going to cost to print? That in itself, if you're going to start a 3D printing business, how much does this cost to actually make? That's a good problem by itself. So I wanted to leave you with this last thought, the thought that we started with, before I entertain questions. It's not about the problems you pick. It has to be the fact that you don't have the answers. Having the answers makes the problem not a problem. So I leave you with that.